I want to welcome my panelists today. I'm really, really thrilled for having such a diverse and fantastic panel. You're all just working on like individual pieces of this puzzle, I think. So it's really cool to have many people join that really have thought a lot about this, both from an online connection point. And this is Michael Morgenstern, who I want to point out here. Michael has been just this fantastic online herald for me. Whenever I want to know what's kind of like new online, I usually just go on Michael's Facebook page and or in the various online groups that he's created, and I get a good download of what's going on. He's, I think, you know, an artist, a film director, and like an incredibly rich talent. And he's currently creating a movie that is releasing online over multiple weeks in real time with participation. So it's a really interesting new movie concept that I'm hoping that he can share a little bit about. Michael, are you on here? Michael, do you want to say hi and maybe a few like a few words about what you're creating currently, and then and how that kind of ties into the session's topic? I'm going to unmute you now.
Yeah, hi everybody. Thank you so much for that kind introduction, Allison. Yeah, I'm a film director and a culture hacker, so I've been spending a lot of my time thinking about how news cycles and storytelling happens over the internet emergently. And so we're releasing this movie over the internet as if it's really happening. And our goal in doing this is, instead of a singular story that a single person is telling, we are creating a collaborative story that the entire internet can tell together. So it's taking cinema and the story of these two kids these two kids are trying to ruin each other's lives. And then there's a third person who's trying to de-escalate and get them to stop fighting. And so it's a story about tribalism, about the questions of why do we try and destroy each other over the internet when there's other ways. And so a lot of what we're doing now, especially in response to COVID, is building an online movement about ways to connect with each other better, that highlights times that people are being good to each other over the internet, with this message that the internet is something that, you know, that balkanizes us, that sets us apart, that causes us to want to destroy each other, but it is also something that can bring us together, something that can create tremendous amounts of empathy. And I think the tools to do that are only just beginning to be built in so many ways. So I'm really excited to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, please post a few links. People are already asking and want to know how they can join. Second up, we have Ingrid La Fleur here, and Ingrid, I think, is hailing from Johannesburg today, and I'm super honored to have you here. Like, honestly, it's been quite the dream of ours to connect with you, and I'm really, really thrilled that that you find the time to join us here. Like, I strongly encourage everyone who's on the call to check out her website. It's an incredibly rich and an incredibly kind of like rich spectrum from which she kind of like surveys different futures. There's a podcast to discover, there's a TED access to discover, and she created the Afrofuturist Strategies Institute. And I think, you know, like the tagline is really quite inspiring that you have on the website. You know, which is that you're creating liberatory practices to create equitable futures. So I'm really honored to have you here on the call today, Ingrid. I'm going to unmute you if you'd like to say hi and, you know, kind of like your background and what you're excited to bring to this discussion.
Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm I'm speaking from Johannesburg. I've been on the continent actually all of 2020, so it's been really interesting to watch everything unfold from here. I came here to do research in Kigali, Rwanda, to look at new forms or other forms of governance. And so that's my work. I'm the founder of the Afrofuturist Strategies Institute. We're a consultancy and creative think tank. We're really focused on futures literacy, especially for communities of color. We look at how anti-Blackness impacts our futures, all of our futures, no matter what your background is. We love to investigate and look at foresight through this lens of the cultural movement of Afrofuturism. And so Afrofuturism is a way of talking about the Black futures using science fiction, fantasy, magical realism. But we also look at African and African diasporic mythologies, legends, spiritual practices. And we also look at the intersection of race and technology and race and science. And so, as I'm sure we're all aware that everyone's future is quite different depending on your background. And so we're trying to make those futures not only equitable, but something that is healthy and prosperous and liberatory for everyone.
Amazing. I'm so happy. Yes, continue.
Oh, and I should say my website is afrofuturestrategies.com. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Ingrid. I just opened up your fantastic talk, which I'm going to post here. Your TEDx for people to look at that. Maybe not now during the salon, but just after, please. It's a very visually aesthetically pleasing talk, and you go through like a few of the visual aesthetics of Afrofuturism. Yes.
And more recently, I'm the host of the video series, What Does the Afrofuture Say? So if you're interested in how Afrofuturists are discussing and thinking about COVID-19 and what happens after, that is the place to go to. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Thank you. Welcome. Next one up, we have Clarissa. Clarissa, I'm super happy to have been introduced to you lately. You also have an incredibly rich background. You're originally from Peru, but I think you just moved within Europe. And so I'm really happy that you found time to join us as well. I think, you wear many hats. Some of them are like really, really impressive. I think the incredibly young age that you have, and amongst many of those hats, it's the founder and director of a nonprofit focused on non-formal education, and so this is, I think, the kind of like the main topic of discussion here. But that being said, your bio is really quite impressive, and your work with a joint research center from the European Commission is, I think, is also not to be forgotten here. I think one thing that you do really well is kind of like you're really bridging this educational gap globally. So I'm super excited to hear about that from you today. I'm going to unmute you if you want to say a few words about your background and why you're excited about being on the session.
Hi, hello everyone. I'm Clarissa from Peru. I'm a researcher at the Center for the Study of Existential Risk at the University of Cambridge, and also the founder and director of Papalek, which is a platform that is formed by many professionals from different parts of the world that feel the need to give back to their communities. So what we have created together is it's a way to do mentoring online, and we have been doing it for 4 years. We have an initiative that is connecting, as you said, Alison, bridging people from Latin America with experts around the world that are a little bit more advanced in their careers. So they connect online via different platforms, and then they have different types of achievements. For example, some mentees can go and study abroad, other ones can get the job that they were looking for, other ones get support and thinking about how is their professional development gonna go. And beside this mentoring platform that we have created, we also are very keen to produce content on our blog and in our YouTube channel. So what we do is to share the story of Latin American people, how they have achieved what they have achieved, what was the ups and downs they have to go through, so Latin American students don't have to start from zero. And I'm very happy to talk more about it during the conversation. Thank you, Alison.
Awesome. Thank you. Welcome. Please leave yourself unmuted so that we can dive into the discussion in a second. I just want to say hi to the final panelist, who's Erica Frank. Erica was previously on for a Foresight Salon, I think a few weeks ago, with Brad on already kind of foreshadowing some of the technological opportunities and education and so on that are being presented right now with COVID-19, and she made a really strong case for her university, which is just one of the insane projects that she's spinning out. It's NextGenU, and it's really just this kind of like very elaborate and quite established kind of like attempt at providing people with really like an accredited and an acknowledged and an acknowledged online education in this really kind of like fantastic and liberating way. So I encourage you to watch her talk as well. Erica, I'm really happy to have you here. I already unmuted you. You want to say a few words about what's your perspective on this session?
Great. Hi, Erica Frank. Thanks for that lovely introduction, Allison. Hi. I'm a Canada Research Chair and Professor at the University of British Columbia. My specialty within medicine is preventive medicine. I moved here in 2006 from Emory. And the two pieces that I think are most relevant that I've been working on, one quite recently and one for a couple decades. The recent one is meethere.org, which is a conferencing platform for primarily for nonprofits that are trying to find an alternative to just accumulating webinars. And the second, though, as Allison alluded to, is nextgenu.org, which is in essence the world's first free university. We're present since we talked last time now in every country in the world. We added South Sudan. Thanks. And we're also offering the world's first free degree, a master's degree in public health, as well as other health sciences courses. So look forward to talking more about all of that.
Amazing. Okay, well, we have quite the list to cover here. I just want to say for everyone, I just posted in the chat as we're discussing, please join the Slack discussion. So please open up your Slack right now. We're going to do something, as I said in the introduction, a little bit more experimental. Rather than using the Google Doc, because people have been requesting that you can upvote questions. So what I would love for you guys to do is open up your Slack right now, go into Hive Week 2, the discussion, and all the questions that I'm going to be asking the panelists are already on there. There are 1 to 5 questions, and you're welcome to add your own questions there, and then other people can upvote them by clapping onto them with an emoji. Okay, and that tells me then afterwards when we go to the participant Q&A, which questions were much liked by you, and I can call on you to unmute you, and you can ask it. Okay, let's try it that way. And a few of you, I think some of the questions already have 8 replies, so this is awesome. Please join on Slack. If you have an aversion against Slack, you're welcome to also stay in the Zoom chat, but that in the Zoom chat we can't upvote your questions. So let's see. This is just another incentive to join the Slack. Great. Okay, let's dive right into it. We have a few people of you already discussing those questions, but maybe let's talk immediately really about COVID-19 and kind of like dive right into this specific opportunity that was created by COVID-19. So what specific cultural shifts have emerged, or if you want to talk conversely, which roadblocks really were lifted due to COVID-19 that kind of like may allow us to create a much richer virtual life, education, or work. So maybe you can talk a little bit about your kind of like immediate personal experience there. You know, what has changed for you? What kind of cultural shifts do you see happening in your environment? What roadblocks do you see lifted that allows your online experience, what you're bringing to kind of flourish right now? Erica, do you want to go first, and then we go around? Erica? Okay, well then let's start with Ingrid then. Ingrid, I'm gonna unmute you.
I think she wanted to be unmuted.
Erica? Oh yeah.
She's muted.
Okay, Erica, I'm going to unmute you. You go. You should be able to talk now.
Good. Yes, thank you. The piece that I'll start with for this one is talking about the shift that's happened from having far fewer people flying, and this has and having many conferences canceled for all of this year for medicine, for most of the conferences that I get invited to. So what this has done is, I'm going to share my screen, and if you would allow me to, please, Allison. Yeah.
1 second, I need to make you co-host for that.
Okay, great.
All right, got it.
Great. So Okay, share. I think that this will do it. Okay, you're presumably able to see my screen now, yes? So the thing that this phenomenon of people actually now stopping flying or flying a lot less is what prompted me to start meethere.org. And I'm not going to go into it in much depth. You guys are welcome to look at it on your own, including at our current conferences. But I encourage you to look also at this particular slide, and I showed this last time as well, but it's something that I really hope will get permanently emblazoned on everyone's brains, because for many of the discussions that I've had for the last few months, people have been talking about COVID as being a preview of what will happen when we have problems from climate change that become global and severe. And so this graph changed my life. This is the average current climate emissions per person in the whole world. It's also about a 5,200 kilometer and back flight between me here on Vancouver Island and my sister in Florida. And so that would, if I were to do such a flight, that would put me at exactly the world average for one flight to be the same carbon footprint as the world average. And so for those of us who have historically flown a lot, like this one, 1,700 kilometers and back, the globe, for those of you for whom this isn't a common thought, is about 40,000 kilometers in circumference. So that's about one distant flight and back. And so that in a first class seat would put you above the average American and the average Canadian in terms of greenhouse gas emissions for the year with just that one flight. So I think that one of the most important barriers, both in reducing greenhouse gas emissions and in education, and I'll talk about the education part later, is that people are seeing that a world with a whole lot less flying is actually possible, and that we're still able to have abundant and meaningful interactions even without flying. So that, I hope, is going to be a barrier to positive change that will be removed from a world that used to think, gosh, I have to fly, I must go. Thanks.
Thank you. Ingrid, I will unmute you next.
I have to admit, I'm one of those who love to fly. But
Loving
I'm
it
okay.
is the issue, right? Yeah.
But it's okay. You know, I'm adjusting, and that is a conversation for those of us who fly for work. How do we readjust? But one thing that I've noticed is that because I'm a traveler, it's hard to usually connect with friends and family. And now everyone's home, and and everyone is on their computer. So I've actually been able to connect deeply with a lot of people, catch up on conversations. I think that that's what's really been beautiful. Thing is the amount of time that we've been given has allowed many of us to be able to reconnect with our friends and family who might be distant from us, and even having like club quarantine on Instagram, where everyone's partying together across the globe. These virtual parties are actually really, really interesting to watch. I haven't even been to one yet, but all my friends talk about it. And I think there's something about being able to gather together virtually and have a similar experience that is filled with pleasure in a time of uncertainty. That's really, really beautiful. So I think people are really being able to connect and expand their communities as a result of COVID.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I totally agree. I've also only heard about those parties. No, in fact, I was at one of them, and Michael was there too, and he moderated a fantastic session. Michael, do you want to go?
Yeah, I'd love to talk about those parties. And I think in general, what's happened now is there's so much of a will to connect, and a lot of these online experiences that were previously less satisfying. They're still less satisfying, but they're far more satisfying than being alone, or so that we are all pouring our interest in there. And I think a lot of these platforms have already been present. Gen Z has been living on the internet much more than people of older generations. And a lot of what I've seen is older generations start to discover these online tools that already exist. Like I have a lot of friends on Discord now. And I used to just hear about Discord as a thing that Gen Z gamers would use. I think that what was most fascinating to me about this, and especially at that time when that immersive verse party happened, there was everyone just rushed into quarantine, and there was such a quick movement into that, that this really liminal space opened up where, I started a Facebook group with some friends called the Coronavirus Dank Meme Stash, which gave a lot of levity to people in coronavirus, and it just like exploded. And there was a lot of things like that started at that point that really exploded because there was such a need and such a shift. And then what happened soon after that is everyone got busy. We found new ways to get busy. And it used to be like, oh, should we host this event tomorrow night online? Well, sure. What else is anyone doing tomorrow night? But now we have schedules again. We have appointments. And so I think that we have left that liminal space in a lot of ways. We're still in a bit of a liminal space, but there's going to be more of those. As we go back out from isolation, there's going to be another liminal space where people don't really know what to do, and there's a giant hole that's ready to be filled. And the question is, what processes and technology will be used to fill that? And then I think there will be a whole series of additional liminal spaces. And so that's, and I think there's also a much slower development of new platforms. And I'm really excited to see what new platforms solve some of the problems that the current platforms have.
Yeah, I think it's kind of crazy because it seems like the evolution in the ways that we connect are kind of sped up. You first had like everyone on Zoom. Then you had this like Zoom bombing week where like we got bombed, a ton of other events got bombed, and then people got bored of that too. Then it was like Zoom fatigue. Now people are kind of like going back onto Zoom. Then there was this kind of like outburst of like, okay, what's new? Can we use Yamper? Can we use, the Mozilla room where you can fly others into space and like create those 3D worlds for each other? And then people are like, but others won't follow, so let's maybe stick with Zoom. Like, have you seen like also those kind of like cultural rifts and shifts? And if so, what do you think are kind of like platforms that may stick?
Yeah, and that it also makes me think of, someone told me once that in creating a startup, the most important thing is not the team or the concept, but it's the customer and the community. And because even if your team's not that great, even if your idea isn't perfect, even if your execution isn't perfect, if there's a need, that community will pull that need out of the creators. And that's what I think we're seeing now, is there's just such a tremendous need that anything that even remotely satisfies that need is, getting adopted and getting jumped on. And we're using these like buggy applications with our friends, just trying them out. I'm excited about Online Town. I'm glad we're going there after this. I think, one of the things that seems the most missing is the ability to have intimate one-on-one conversations and connections. Because you go to an event, and a lot of what we hope for out of an event is not necessarily the content of that event, but it's the opportunity to meet people. And I think that the online, like the opportunities in this 63-person room for somebody to have a kind of casual conversation and make a lifetime connection that they would have if we were all here in person are not really there yet. And, I'm so curious, who are all these people in this room? And like, we're going to leave and not really find out.
Even though I have to say, one thing that I personally find as a moderator incredible is that by having a chat, a lot of people can actually talk at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So I would never hear that much from participants in a normal thing that I would be facilitating. Here people can actually interact with each other. I've heard of a ton of people that actually are interacting in private messages that have met here. But that's why I want everyone to move on to Slack afterwards so we can continue the conversation. But I totally agree. I think, there's a lot of potential, and I'm trying to still find out how to harvest it. Okay, Clarissa, what's your answer? What's your opinion?
I think that in the positive side, I see a lot of people and citizens more engaged on knowing more. They want to know what the government is saying, what Congress people are debating. They are even going online, webinars online to understand what scientists are saying about COVID-19. So even friends from high school are going to the webinars that I'm talking about the use and misuse of technology during COVID-19. So I think this is a positive thing to get people more engaged with different aspects of life. And in terms of roadblocks, because you also asked about that, I think that something that has been shown during this time is that we have a problem of bringing virtual content and knowledge to people that don't have even electricity at home. So what do we do in that case? And that's a problem that we have also faced at Ecpapalec because all our programs and content and webinars are online. So for a while, what we did was to have a short section in a radio program, because that's the way how people, for example, in the highlands in Peru, have to communicate with each other. If there is something that is happening in the community, they will know through the radio. And that's how we did it for a while. We started reading different articles from our blog and talking about professional development through that. And that's something that has also been taken by the government in Peru because they said like everything, all the classes have to go online for primary and secondary schools. So what they are doing now is to have these classes via the national TV. So it's broadcast around the whole country and through the radio as well. And on top of that, the government has also decided to buy some tablets with internet connections. So students from secondary school can go and listen to these classes. And I think this crisis has been bringing up all these positive and negative things, but that's an open window for, finding solutions and see what we can do to fix it.
That's totally fantastic. I just know that from a few schools just from USA in the US, I think a few students are not being taught at all right now because some people in their class can't afford a computer. So they're just basically cutting all online education. But it's actually like super innovative what those governments have been doing and just said like, no, we need to level people up, not down. Let's just do it via TV, like it's really cool, really, really cool. Well, congrats on that. And Erica, because you're also in education, do you maybe want to say just a few more words about how how the experience around NextGenU has changed? What are you offering, what you haven't been offering before, and how do we reach those people that aren't even online yet?
Sure. Yes. So we do have, and I was thinking about this as you were talking, we do have a downloadable version of our courses. So that's how we are able to get around that. But the main thing that we've done that is different is that we have started a new course. So this is one of the things that these technologies allow one to do with great nimbleness. So we started a COVID-19 orientation course that's now being quite widely used. And we're able to build that in a matter of a couple of weeks. So this is indeed the kind of opportunity that one can get with such situations.
All right, neat. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm trying to close this. All right, I'm going down the questions in the Slack chat. So please hop on Slack and start answering those. And I already got some upvotes here for a few questions. So, maybe just, are there a few specific projects, like a few specific shout outs that you want to, that you want to give, like things that were incredibly exciting, or things that you want to flag as potential obstacles that we should be looking out for? What kind of like, what obstacles and challenges do you see ahead, or what are specific things right now that are really pushing the envelope? Either what's the most positive thing out there right now, and how could it evolve, or what should we be worried about, depending on how optimistic or pessimistic you feel. Michael, do you want to start?
Sorry, I'm having some internet issues.
Okay, then let's start with Ingrid, and I'll post the question in the chat. Ingrid, what do you think right now is really giving you lots of hope online? What do you think are specific exciting projects, or what do you think is quite worrisome if we're actually trying to create like a stable and accessible online life.
Yeah, I think Clarissa touched upon it. In Detroit, 40% of Detroiters are without high-speed internet, and the number goes up to 60% for children. So it's definitely that's a major roadblock and obstacle if people do not have access to high-speed internet. In Detroit, the way that we're tackling that is we're creating mesh networks, and we have been doing that for a couple of years with the Equitable Internet Initiative. And so, of course, it's slowed down, but at least that was put into place in most of the lower income neighborhoods. And that's always been a problem. It's nothing new. And now with COVID-19, it's just exacerbated the problem. I think that we're seeing the disparities because of COVID-19 and how it's hitting different communities in different ways. And how people are reacting to that. We're really learning more about our country, for better or for worse. But what I think is really hopeful, besides the fact that there are mesh networks happening, there are a lot more conversations about what is the future that we want to see. And so with my podcast and with other conversations that I'm seeing on Instagram Live and so on and so forth, we're constantly discussing, because we're witnessing a high level of Black death in the United States. We're seeing how it's disproportionately affecting Black communities. So, to have Afrofuturists speak about how we can create new futures is vitally important for our healing, for our sanity, to be quite honest. I'm literally in grieving mode right now, found out about a friend who passed away today. So, this is, it's ongoing and it's a collective grieving. I'm not alone. And it becomes difficult to imagine new futures as a result. So it's really great to hear from other people who've been thinking about it, who are optimistic and hopeful and very direct about what's necessary. But the state of our humanity is in question in the United States. It's very disturbing to watch from afar. Very, very disturbing, to be very blunt about it. And the fact that everyone is not concerned with this is another part of the battle, the long ongoing battle, in order to demand that Black bodies have futures and that we are human. And so that's within the virtual space, outside of the virtual space, it really doesn't matter. Either way, we're dealing with this on the front lines constantly. And we have to make sure that we collectively try to resolve that issue.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, my condolences. I'm really sorry that you had that this morning. Thank you for still, making it on here and being such a, I think, light of hope. But that's like, this is, it's hitting very close to home, I think. And I also really agree with your point. I know that I've been a little bit like more on a private level involved in like some more prison-focused efforts, and there you just see kind of like this really incredible kind of like asymmetric affection of specific types of the population, and who are just, I mean, like I sometimes think it's just totally insane that this is going on as we speak, and not everyone is talking about this, and so I think that especially now and with kind of like the actions of the Bureau of Prisons. Given between what they say they're doing for prisoners and what is just not happening right now, and how it, again, disproportionately affects certain communities is, I mean, it's totally flabbergasting. So I just want to kind of like make that also, like bring it into the point of discussion, because that's something that the US is also kind of failing at creating a dialogue around this. Yeah, thank you for reminding us. And maybe Michael, if your internet's working.
Yeah, it's working now.
Great.
And thank you. Thank you for sharing, Ingrid, and my condolences as well. That's really hard. I can imagine. I think that your point on why aren't more people talking about this is a really interesting one, because I think that over the past 10 years, our online discourse has become really balkanized because of the way that social media puts us into filter bubbles. And that now that problem has been exacerbated and multiplied 1,000-fold, because before we used to have places where we would be grounded We would have places where we would meet each other, come into contact in coffee shops. The real world offers a lot of opportunities to interact with people who you haven't chosen to interact with. And what we're seeing now is that these online communities that have been formed are now our only communities. And so Facebook becomes our window into what the world looks like. And so there's people who are completely unaware of what's going on in the prisons, or how much Black death there is in the United States, or any number of things that maybe nobody on this call is aware of, because they're siloed off into these filter bubbles. And I think that, you know, building new online platforms that are really designed like this has become an urgent, really existential issue. It's something that we talk about a lot in our project, and we're trying to help elucidate, like make it more visible and clear, the ways in which these filter bubbles are able to be manipulated and hacked, so that we start, you know, seeing each other as the other for the purposes of outside powers, like, you know, political interest groups or politicians and that sort of thing. I also think, you know, the one big challenge is that what I see is there's a lot of developers who are out of work right now. There's a lot of coders with time on their hands. You know, the world seems to have been split into a group of people who are struggling to survive and a group of people who are like, have a lot of free time. And I see a lot of really high-minded conversations about what the future is going to look like, and a lot of spitballing of ideas. And my concern is that the group of people who are building that future are very specific select group, and that if they build that future for all of us, for you know, how do we get that future built for everybody, and how do we involve people in that conversation who are struggling to pay rent? Because a lot of those conversations are you know, people ruminating on ideas for days on end, where like 99.9% of those ideas are never going to happen, and 0.1% of those ideas are going to become the future. And so, you know, where people who are struggling to survive don't have time to be involved in those conversations.
I agree. I think one nice thing, or one thing that I'm really hoping to do that those online salons can do, is kind of like bring people from across the planet at least into the conversation. And like we've had some success. I think we've never had as geographically diverse discussions at Foresight as before, because, you know, we have folks, you know, joining, like Brian here, he's joining from Africa, like almost every second salon. I don't know if you're here right now, Brian, but like, it's just like, it's been really incredible by how many people I've met across the world right now, just in the past 7 weeks, that are now joining those salons. But that said, you know, this is 1 hour online, and, you know, I'm really struggling to reach out to all of those people. So if you know of any ways in which we can like broaden this community and make this a more inclusive space, you know, like we can't build for everyone if not everyone's represented. It's just not possible. And I think, honestly, I always think that the sooner you get people in, you have to do that at the beginning before you grow. Like you can't do it as an add-on afterwards. So like, please help us with this.
Yeah,
if you can.
And the sheer amount of privilege that all of us have to be able to spend an hour on a Friday during a workday on this call. And how do we even involve people in this kind of conversation who are working 3 jobs right now? Yeah, I'm curious what others think.
Yeah, I mean, please help me get better at this. This is a call to the community. All right, Clarissa, what's up for you?
Yes, I think that sometimes when you are in the middle of a crisis, there are 2 paths that you can take, right? Go to the dark side, you know what you mean, like, may the force be with you, or you can try to thrive on it. And I can put an example, a very personal example. My crisis, my existential crisis, if you want to say, was in 2016. I was in a very dark time. You could say it was my COVID-19 time. It was very, very bad for me, terrible. And I was just very depressed of how bad the war was. As silly as it sounds, it was everything was rapists or sex slavery or animals that are being abused. So for me, everything was just chaotic. So I reached a point where I had to take a decision if I want to keep there in the dark or if I do something to help a little bit. And that's when I created Tekpapalek. I thought, why me coming from Peru, from a family that has not so much money, had the opportunity to be right now in Australia, finishing my PhD. So I thought, like, I was very privileged, I was very lucky, so what can I do with what life gave me? So I thought that at that time I had a network. I met many people during this time, and I knew a little bit about how to use the internet. So I thought that there are many students in Latin America that have no access to opportunities, so maybe I can help them. So I started with a blog telling my stories, how I got a scholarship, how I work for having the opportunity to study a master in Sweden and so on. So I thought that that would be a way to help people, just sharing experiences, as you are talking about in this today in this HiveMind. And then that led to another thing, which made me think that I'm not the only one. There are many people that has experiences and they want to probably share it as me. So let's just ask them. So I went into my network and told them, look, this is what I want to do. I think that Latin American students don't need to start from zero. Maybe we can just give them a little bit of our experience. And maybe we can create a mentoring platform for them, you know, so we can just talk using Skype at that time. And then that's how it happened. We were, as we say in Peru, 4 cats. We were 4 people being mentors. And now we have been in a community at some point that we've had like 45 mentors online. And what I'm trying to say is that just look at yourself. Everyone has different values and different passions. Some care about the plants, some care about animals, some care about the planet. So look what are the resources you have around. Go with the people that you think can follow you and your idea, and start with something simple as that. Just creating something online, which is a technology that I can have access to. You also can have access to it. So just, you know, start with something small and see what it takes you. Because to me, it takes me to a completely different path, not only in a personal level, but in a professional level. We're switching careers and everything. So it's, I really recommend it to just go for it.
Awesome, thank you so much. I'm going to move on to Erica now, but as we do that, we had Lauren asking a question in Slack that's specifically for Erica. So Lauren Barcode, I'm going to unmute you now so you can ask her, so Erica can tackle both in one.
Can you hear me? Wow, this is my first online voice. This was the one about the high-speed rail?
Correct.
So when listening to this and talking about big projects, it occurs to me that after the Great Depression, there was a big public works project. And so dealing with climate change by maybe doing this huge, super expensive international high-speed rail from Mexico through the United States to Canada and maybe Alaska would be worth doing. It would be super expensive. We'd have to deal with the environmental issues of going through the coastal mountains. Of course, we would be offloading the electric to some other means of powering it, but it might be a huge jobs program that creates a better space, both socially, because we're creating this international corridor, but environmentally and otherwise.
Yeah, thanks. There certainly has been considerable interest for many years about that, including, you know, just a San Francisco LA leg or a LA to Seattle leg or to Vancouver. So that would be amazing. I do think and hope that we're going to be doing a lot of rethinking, though, about collective transportation. Yeah, that kind of big collective infrastructure, now that we all have pandemics firmly in our brains, I don't know if that one will take off. But I will answer your question, though, Allison, your more general question, with one last screen sharing. So this is, you know, as I mentioned, hundreds of millions of students and faculty now teaching and learning online, but many of them think that they're going to be returning in the fall to business as usual. So this is only Amherst in this first cohort is waiting to decide for another month, and Beloit is proposing a hybrid model, but there's tremendous concern by university administrators, especially in the United States, because we have such a heavy, such a large amount of private education in Canada that doesn't exist. So all of these universities are going to be feeling a very substantial pinch. Many of them are already financially marginal. So I think that the positive opportunity to come from this is that those of us who are providing online and downloadable, free, accredited education, that's us, that there is a real opportunity to be able to feed all of these hungry learners and teachers who need curriculum and who need a place to interact. So I think that that's the piece that I think is the springing forward answer.
Awesome. Yeah, that's quite empowering. I think, if we're moving on to maybe like the one of the more let's say optimistic and far future questions, from Stack. And I would love to hear from you, Ingrid, because of your fantastic TEDx on it. If you think large right now, right? If we reap all the opportunities that are presented right now in an ideal way, right? Where could we be in 3 years? Like, can you paint a picture of the type of virtual online life, work, and education that we could be looking forward to if we get it right?
Yeah,
Sorry, this was for Ingrid.
Oh,
I'm
I'm
going to
sorry.
unmute her quickly.
So sorry.
No worries. We'll go to you as well, because I'd love to hear about you from the education piece. Okay, Ingrid, you're muted.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm really interested in the virtual reality space. And I think hopefully the goggles will be more affordable for people to acquire, and it'll become, almost like having a cell phone. Everyone has one. I really love virtual reality. I've curated exhibitions where I've had virtual reality projects, and I've seen how people respond to it, especially seniors, who are probably our most isolated population. So I think as a learning tool, it could be very exciting, a way to develop empathy and compassion for other realities that we may be disconnected from or just distant from. And it seems to be like I'm hoping it's the way of the future. I think also I'm really into blockchain technology and cryptocurrency. And so I'm really into decentralized autonomous communities, where you have communities who develop their own cryptocurrency based on their own values. And all of that information in terms of the token and how it's being used and inflation and voting on things, and it's all online and it's all on a website basically, which means it creates a new level of transparency that we haven't seen in an economic system. And so I'm really into community developed economies. And so I would like to see that as something where people are more comfortable venturing and experimenting with that in the next 3 years.
Awesome. Yeah, I just posted a link to the fantastic art that you're creating for people to check out. And yeah, it's kind of mind-boggling. Thanks for doing that. I think, art can say all the things that we can't say in words or just barely scratch the surface. And I think, Michael, you're also really spearheading a fantastic effort there. What's your vision? Can you paint a picture of a life?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my vision is that we take these tools for collective storytelling and we start to see how our stories are being collectively told and tell our own stories. And there's a lot of different ways that people who are really good at storytelling online use to put out messages. And a lot of the time we're fairly passive consumers about it. We're not really aware how we're being manipulated by that. And so I think that as we gain more media literacy into how this process happens, we're going to be able to better take control of our own stories and our own narratives and our own messages and look at our stories and ask whether those are ones we want to deliberately choose. And I think along those lines, I'm really excited to see, I would like to see platforms online that let us take more control over our top level narratives. We're really, and I keep going back to Facebook, we're passive consumers of Facebook and Facebook decides what to show us. And you compare that to how we operate in our daily lives, where we choose what to put our attention on. We're not always good at picking what to put our attention on, and certainly some of it is out of our control. But I think that as an online species, we need to have tools that let us level up and let us choose. This is what I want my online communities to look like. This is what I want my online spaces to look like. Because I think, while filter bubbles has a very negative connotation, the filter bubbles can actually be very cool. It's one of the things that got us so excited about the internet to start with is, oh, wow, I am at this place where there's nobody who thinks like me. And I found a whole bunch of people who think like me. And I think that the challenge with filter bubbles is when they are the way they're created and the algorithms that are used to create them. And so if you end up in a world where you're no longer being challenged, that's not good. If you end up in a world where you're isolated from the people in physical proximity to you, that for some people that can be what they need, but it's not always healthy for society at large. So I'm excited to see tools, using AI, because AI is running all this stuff, but tools that put us near the people that we need to be near, tools that allow us to have the kind of complex discourse that we want to have. And I think that there's two issues right now with the tools. One is that they're really simple. Facebook and Twitter and these algorithms are looking at very simple metrics. They're not have an understanding of when we go online and log in, what do we actually need? What do we actually want? But then the other is that they're optimizing for our eyeballs, our time, our attention, our clicks, and our money. And so I think we have to figure out other ways to incentivize these platforms, and then these platforms will connect us in the ways we want to be connected.
Thank you. Okay, and now we're moving on to Erica and Clarissa, and already, because it's 59 now, could you maybe also make this your last words in finishing? If there's only one thing that that people do after the session, what ought they to do? Give them one action item. Erica, you start, and then Clarissa.
Sure, thanks. So I see a future 3 years from now where the entire world can access at least every health sciences course that they would like to be able to access on the undergraduate and graduate level. I think we can fill that component and start to make this true in other disciplines. Another friend of foresight, Tony Lai, we're talking about creating a law school in a box, and there's every reason to start to extrapolate these kinds of opportunities outward from health sciences. And I think I certainly agree with Ingrid and Michael that the place where we go to from here is we all have been using now, and not just us, but folks who've been resistant to these sorts of notions for decades have been using for education and for interaction intensively for the last months. And we all know now that it can be done, and there are ways that it can be done well and ways it can be done poorly. So I think we could leap to a world where people voluntarily choose these kinds of media because they're faster and more accessible and less expensive and less time consuming and less personally disruptive and cheaper. So we are at a point now where we know we have equivalent quality, and I think we can move to a point where, with the addition of even more AI and more technologies, where we could have extraordinary education available for the entire world.
Thank you. Okay, in one sentence, what do you want people to do after this session? And we go around, you start, Erica, then Clarissa, then Ingrid, then Michael.
Okay, well, I'm just going to put in a pitch since there was some enthusiasm for NextGenU. Please come and join us, use our courses, and contribute courses. We are in every country.
10 seconds. Thank you, Erica. Clarissa.
Pardon my semicolons.
I will encourage everyone to think how we can use technology to solve a local problem. I think we are doing it great at international level, but not at local yet.
Wow, that's great. Very specific. Michael, and then Ingrid, you finish.
I want y'all to come create art with us. So take a look at our trailer, message me on Slack if you're interested.
All right, great. And Ingrid, I think, Ingrid, you are muted. I'm going to unmute you. Your last words before we go on to Online Town.
Please explore the Afrofuture, and no matter your background, and follow us on YouTube so that you can learn more about the Afrofuture.
Yeah, I can only second that. I think, collecting hopeful views on the future for Existential Hope, which is this website that I have, in collecting positive visions for humanity. The best ones are Afrofuturist. Like, it's just the kinds of the richness is really great right now, where everyone else is kind of stalling in imagination. So thank you for creating that. And for now, I will be posting into this room, or Lou can do it in case I'm stuck here. Oh, here we go. I'm posting in this room, in this chat right now, where we're going to meet. Please meet there. Open this link, type in the password of this chat, and we're going to be meeting there in, let's say, in a few minutes from now. I do also want to say, maybe Luke can also share the link to that. I don't know if you can still see me. I think I'm maybe breaking off, but maybe Luke can also share the link to that. This kind of like container that we're creating for you, is entirely funded by your donations. Like, you and I are kind of like working day and night to set this on. It's so nice that many of you are joining. There are different membership levels that kind of grant you different engagement types with Foresight. So if you're interested in becoming more involved and becoming more involved in being financially incentivized to do that, then please go on the link that Luke can post, and there's a membership page with different membership benefits for you guys. I really want to thank everyone who has already been putting so much time into this, and I'm hoping that we will untangle ourselves much more into each other over the coming weeks. So thank you so much. With that, I really, really just want to deeply thank the panel for joining. I thought it was a very, very authentic and an inspiring conversation. Thanks a lot. I'm quite.
Sorry, Allison?
Yes.
Pardon my interruption. I tried out Online Town and it did give me an error message. I just thought you guys might want to look at that before we all go away.
What's the
you might have included the password in the URL.
Did I?
It's on the line below.
No.
Makes it.
I think
if other folks are able to get in, great.
Yeah, I think maybe sometimes it's your browser. Lou had this earlier when we tried it out. Some browsers don't make it work. But I would say that just try, and if not, we coordinate in the Slack. But I think Brent just posted it again, the link and password, and Lou is recommending Chrome for this link because I think Firefox was playing tricks on us earlier. Okay, so with that being said, I want to say bye to you for now. Hopefully I'm meeting most of you tomorrow at 11 a.m. again in Zoom, and there we're going to do like a little bit of an online working group on Slack and Siempre. So we're going to experiment with all the tools and do it quite interactively. So hopefully, okay. So see you in a second on Siempre. Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.